Most people don't realize that cheating rarely begins with recklessness. It often starts cautiously, quietly, and with a strong belief that nothing will go wrong. But over time, the risks grow, the boundaries blur, and the behavior escalates in ways even the person didn't expect. Psychology explains why cheaters take bigger risks over time, and it has less to do with desire and more with how the human brain adapts to secrecy, reward, and repeated success. By the end of this, you'll understand why early restraint fades, why danger starts to feel normal, and why risk becomes part of the behavior itself. In the beginning, cheating is usually wrapped in fear. Fear of being caught, fear of guilt, fear of consequences. This fear keeps behavior controlled. Messages are deleted, meetings are rare, stories are carefully rehearsed. The brain is on high alert because it believes the threat is real and immediate. But the brain is also a learning machine. Each time a risky behavior happens without consequences, the brain updates its expectations. What once felt dangerous starts to feel manageable. Anxiety drops, confidence rises. The absence of punishment quietly teaches the brain that the risk may be lower than expected. This process is driven by the brain's reward system. Dopamine is released not just from pleasure, but from novelty, secrecy, and anticipation. Early on, dopamine spikes are intense because everything feels forbidden and uncertain. Over time, the brain begins to crave that same level of stimulation again. Here is where things change. What once felt thrilling no longer delivers the same emotional charge. The brain adapts. This is called habituation. To feel the same intensity, the behavior has to escalate. More contact, less caution, higher stakes. This pattern shows up everywhere in human behavior. Gambling, thrill-seeking, even work habits follow the same curve. When reward comes without cost, people naturally push boundaries further. Cheating is no different. At this point, many cheaters begin taking risks they once swore they never would. They stop deleting messages, they meet closer to home, they involve social circles, they rely on luck rather than planning. The brain is no longer operating in fear mode, it's operating in reward mode. A surprising insight here is that increased risk often feels like confidence, not recklessness. The person believes they are smarter, more careful, more in control than before. Past success becomes proof that they won't get caught, rather than evidence that chance played a role. Have you noticed how people often say, "I never thought it would happen to me," right after something collapses? That belief doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from repeated reinforcement. Another psychological shift happens around identity. Early on, cheating feels separate from the person's self-image. It's framed as an exception, a mistake, a temporary thing. Over time, the brain works to reduce internal conflict. It starts normalizing the behavior. To reduce guilt, the mind creates stories. The relationship was already broken. The partner wouldn't understand. The connection feels real. These narratives protect self-esteem, but they also lower internal resistance to risk. Once guilt fades, caution often fades with it. Emotional detachment from consequences makes risky decisions easier. The brain no longer signals danger as strongly because it no longer sees the behavior as threatening to the self. There's also a social factor at play. When cheating continues, people often begin testing reality. Small disclosures, partial truths, subtle boundary violations. Each successful test increases confidence that the situation is safe. This is why escalation often happens gradually rather than suddenly. The person doesn't wake up one day and decide to risk everything. The risks grow in small, almost invisible steps. Here's a moment to pause and reflect. If someone keeps getting away with something, how long before their behavior changes? And would you notice the shift if it happened slowly? Another key factor is emotional numbness. Over time, emotional intensity flattens. The thrill that once felt electric becomes routine. To feel alive again, the brain seeks stronger stimulation. Bigger risks offer that. This is why some cheaters begin acting in ways that seem irrational from the outside. They text openly, they overlap relationships, they stop hiding as carefully. The risk itself becomes part of the reward. What's important to understand is that this isn't about intelligence. Many highly intelligent people fall into this pattern. It's about how the brain responds to repeated reinforcement without consequence. Eventually, reality catches up. The same mechanisms that encouraged escalation also make collapse more likely. The higher the risk, the fewer variables remain under control. And when consequences finally appear, they often feel shocking, not because they were unpredictable, but because the brain had expected safety where none was guaranteed. For partners on the receiving end, this can feel deeply confusing. The later behavior seems careless, even cruel. But psychologically, it's the result of a long internal process that began with small decisions. This doesn't excuse the behavior. Understanding is not the same as justification, but clarity matters. Without understanding the pattern, it's easy to focus only on the final moment instead of the slow buildup. The deeper insight here is that risk escalation is a warning sign, not a sudden failure. It reflects a system that has been reinforced too many times without interruption. For anyone reflecting on their own behavior, this knowledge creates an opportunity. Awareness interrupts automatic patterns. When risk starts to feel normal, that's the moment something important is happening. For those healing from betrayal, understanding this pattern can shift the narrative. It wasn't random, it wasn't sudden, and it wasn't caused by a single moment of temptation. Cheating becomes more dangerous over time because the brain learns the wrong lesson. It learns that safety is guaranteed, that risk is manageable, and that consequences are unlikely, until they aren't. The most powerful takeaway is this: behavior doesn't escalate because people want destruction. It escalates because the brain adapts to success faster than it adapts to danger. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on where small risks in life quietly grow. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this helped you see human behavior more clearly, consider staying connected for more insights like this.